SEGA Bits presents SEGA Talk, a podcast talking all things SEGA! With your hosts, George and Barry.
Look, it's a giant talking egg. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to the master here. So what?
Hello, and welcome to episode number 77 of SEGA Talk. I'm your host, George, and with me, like always, is Barry.
I'm going to take my head off.
Oh, I was going to say, this episode we're going to be talking about a game that's head exploding, or mind exploding. I don't even know what the phrase is. We're going to be talking about a better show than Broadway. We're going to be talking about Dynamite Headdy that has nothing to do with Napoleon Dynamite, even though they both have Dynamite in their name, and the movies, these both things have nothing to do with Dynamite. I'm
getting head.
It's just an explosive character giving you that bang. But usually we tell you, we have the Patreon. You can check us out at www.patreon.com/SegaBits. You could fund episodes where you pick the episode that we talk about. This one was actually picked by someone, Angry Bar Steward, but he never sent me why or his memories or anything, and he just confirmed he wanted this episode. So I wrote the episode, and then when I asked him for the memories, he never replied back. Maybe he doesn't check Patreon, but he did pay for this episode.
Well, and you know, if he's listening, which I hope he is, I can always add them when I make the public post, as text. So it'll be up there on the site forever. It'll be on the Patreon. Everyone can read it. So I'll put that right under the video there.
And there's another idea we've been having about the Patreon $20 tier, which is the one you picked the episode. Another thing is we're thinking about doing is sending some of the questions that we talk about throughout the episode. That way the memories are kind of more split into different things, like talking about the music, talking about the graphics. And it could be, just lay it out little by little instead of having everything in the beginning. That's an idea we had. Yeah.
I like it.
So
and since we're talking about this, I should mention there is Swing and Report Show Live. We did our little debut kind of test run episode. So that's up there. You can check that out. You can, if you already subscribe to Swing and Report Show on any podcast thing, it's there. It's part of the feed. Next episode, I'm going to have my friend Steve, who's a video game music composer, on. We're going to talk about writing video game music, how you make a living off of it or not. It should be fun. But anyway, let's dive back into this.
Today, we're going to be talking about that 1994 Sega Genesis / Game Gear classic by Treasure. Of course, we're talking mostly about the Sega Genesis version. I feel like when you think about these D-makes for the Game Gear back in the day, we usually talk about the Genesis version. That was the leading platform. That was what everyone wanted to play back then. So that's what we're going to be talking about this episode. But let's start up the conversation with your history and thoughts of Dynamite Headdy. Did you remember this game as a kid? Because to me, it flew right under the radar.
Well, let's jog my memory here with the Sega box. So I'm going to push the button and play some music.
Mission 1.
All right. Well, I think I'd have my memory jogged now with the Sega piggy bank. I rented this for sure. I remember renting this and playing it over a weekend, and I guess I enjoyed it. I mean, we talked about on our previous episode recently how few good platformers there are outside of Sonic. I mean, they're there. Genesis has a really good selection, but nowhere near the amount you'd expect. And this is one of the few, I think, that rises to the top. Maybe not on par with Sonic, but definitely very well made, very polished, a lot of fun. So, that's pretty much my history with it. And then it wasn't until years later that I was like, oh, Treasure. And I made that connection of their games and Gunstar Heroes and things like that. So, that's me. How about you?
You know what? I never heard of this game until way after, when I started looking at Treasure's library on the Sega Genesis. I think this one and is it called Light Crusader, the other one that they did?
Yes.
These are like games that kind of went under the radar for me. I think they're underrated because I never hear that many people talk about Dynamite Headdy the way they talk about, let's say, Gunstar Heroes, for example. I don't know what it is, and I did see the game around, but I think something about the character's design, which I'll talk about when we start talking about the character design, kind of threw me off. I don't know what it was about it, even though they were supposedly influenced by Western animation, according to the notes. It's just something about it just never caught my eye to play it. But after I actually played it, I don't know, it really blew my mind. Like, the amount of stuff that happens in the background in these games, the backgrounds are so alive. It feels so cartoony. It's fast-paced. The sound's incredible. Everything about this game is, like, super top-notch. I would say the only complaints I could say about it is the character design. I mean, and I have to be honest, it never grabbed me as a kid. So I just have to be honest that that's my number one problem with it.
Right. Yeah, I think visually the game almost feels like a second-tier Rayman inside Super Mario Bros. 3. You know?
Yeah. And which is funny because this game came out before Rayman, but somehow it gives you that, like, is this like a Kirkland version of Rayman, even though it really isn't?
Right.
So, let's get into the notes. The idea behind Dynamite Headdy all started after producer and designer at Treasure, Koichi Kimura, which, when I googled this, apparently there's a Digimon character named Koichi Kimura, and a lot of pictures came up of Digimon characters. This is not
That's really
has nothing
funny.
to do with Digimon. We have a picture of him if you're watching the video, so that's definitely not a Digimon character. He did the McDonald's video game with Treasure, which was the first Treasure game. If you watch our Gunstar Heroes episode, you hear more about that. And even though he worked on the McDonald's game, he did not work on Gunstar Heroes. So he wanted to make an original IP, which started with this game. So Dynamite Headdy was his project, and because he wanted to create an original game, he talked to the Japanese Beep magazine back in 1994. This is translated by Shoot 'em Up Lations. Weird name for a site. The biggest reason for making Dynamite Headdy was that our team wanted to create something original. I've been a part of many game developments, but almost all of them were either based on pre-existing characters or plans that were handed to me from above, which I then adapted and revised. I thought Dynamite Headdy would be more fun and fulfilling development. Having worked in game dev for 5 years now, I thought it was high time to make something of my own creation. I knew if I wanted to make my own game, I needed to make something that looked convincing from a commercial sales perspective. And I put a lot of effort into the initial design and conception of Dynamite Headdy along with those lines. So this would be Kimura's second game he produced. Before this, he kind of did like graphic design work, and he worked on characters. Some of the pieces of games he worked on included, for Konami, the Castlevania Adventure Game Boy game. His first designer as game designer would be Roller Games for the NES. And then he went on, his last game at Konami was Tiny Toon's Adventures on the Game Boy, Bab's Big Break, which is actually, I found kind of funny because this came out in 1992. Then Treasure in 2002 made Tiny Toon Adventures Buster's Bad Dream on the Game Boy Advance, which is kind of a rare game now. I guess there was limited copies released of this game. So it's funny that he left Konami by doing a Tiny Toons game, and then in Treasure 10 years later, like clockwork, is making a Game Boy Advance Tiny Toon Adventure game. Also, the Treasure game is the last Tiny Toon Adventure games to ever come out, I think. So,
wow. What's their obsession with Tiny Toons? I mean, it's fine, but it was not on TV by 2002.
It was a WB game. They were, I think, paid to do it by them. It was one of those licensed games they did during the time. Yeah, but I agree with you.
Strange.
Did they do a reboot of Tiny Toon Adventures in 2000?
I very much doubt it. Tiny Toon Adventures ran from, oh my god, it only ran from 1990 to 1992. So why are they making a video game 10 years later?
I have no idea.
That's so strange. And I'll be honest, like I grew up when that show was in its prime. It was big, but it was big for a year. That's it. You know?
I used to have a bunny, the blue rabbit or whatever, Tiny Toon. I forgot his name now.
Buster.
Yeah. I used to have one of his dolls. I was so obsessed with that show. I thought it was great, but yeah.
It had great animation, and I remember it was a huge deal when the movie came out, the Summer Vacation one. That was a huge deal, because it was like very rare to get like an animated movie of a TV show so quickly and like so well animated. You're like, wow, look, they're on summer vacation, like us, you know?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I agree.
So
I think we discussed the way that Treasure is structured in the Gunstar Heroes episode. So if you guys want to hear more about that, I definitely suggest you guys watch that episode. But as you know, Treasure is sort of like everyone in the team does whatever they want to do. It was like the president is doing programming. Like in this project, the Treasure president Masato Magawa, who is still president of Treasure, he was the lead programmer on the project. He didn't do many. He did a lot of actually programming, but he wasn't main programmer for a lot of games. He was main programmer for this and 2 other games. Those were Laser Invasion before he joined Treasure or made Treasure, and Mischief Makers in 1997. Dynamite Headdy was actually not directed by a Treasure employee. It was actually directed by a SEGA employee. I mean, an in-house SEGA employee. His name was Hiroshi, and he was mostly directing kind of like 8-bit D-makes at the time. This is his actually biggest directing project, and he never did anything after this really that big. His last project at SEGA was working on Shimu, like everyone was at the time. But yeah, this is his biggest directing project. I think this is probably his debut. I actually would not be shocked, because I was looking at his list of credits, that Treasure just put him as director because they're friendly with him. Because like, I looked at a lot of his titles, and it looked like he was just putting his name on a bunch of games after a while. You know, one of those guys that kind of comes in and puts his hands on stuff. But yeah,
right.
I've never heard of this guy,
interesting.
Hiroshi Aso. Have you ever heard of this guy?
No, but that's interesting. I mean, we've done episodes like this before where we've talked about like the guy who did the music or even the director, and we're like, he remade Space Harrier on the Master System, and then he directs this big game, and then he does nothing for the rest of his career. You know, it's weird. I'm hoping when I do my interview with Steve, I can get to the bottom of how bizarre it is with game credits. It's just like,
it's the weirdest.
I don't know. I feel like I do notable stuff all the time in my career. It's not like, oh, Barry, he worked on that one thing.
And
you know,
you think these Japanese people have it easy back then, where they could work on a few projects? Yeah, okay. Before we get into the story of this game, I kind of wanted to do a cover showdown. You're a graphic designer, so this game actually got 3 different covers for each region. We'll have a look at the covers. No one actually got credited for most of the covers. The only person that got credited was for the Japanese cover, and that was Osamu Muto, who does CGI renders. At the time, that was pretty rare, especially back in '94. He did the Japanese cover for it. As you can see here, if you're watching the video, can you describe the cover for the Japanese cover of Dynamite Headdy? Because it's definitely different artwork than the rest of them. It's basically CGI. The game does not look like this.
Right, yeah, so they're CG renders of the main character running through the scene, and then the back cover is that same render, but from the back, and you see this, like, cat with, like, giant, creepy eyes staring at you, but you can see the back of him on the cover, so it's, like, the same scene, and they just move the camera, and you can see the filming equipment. It's very clear, and I'd say it reminds me most of Bug. The cover art for Bug. Yeah. Yeah.
That's a cool cover. I actually kind of like this cover. It grew on me. At first, when I first saw it, I didn't like it. But the second cover we're looking at is the American cover. This is the one I kind of know more. This one is very Sega of America look. The art, the way it looks, it reminds me kind of like how when they redid Sonic.
Yeah.
On this one, there's buildings. He's jumping towards the screen. And in the back It has different heady looks where, you know, when he changes his head, he has different powers in this game. And they kind of show that off in the background. And it's like, so there's multiple headies. This is not like... So they're trying to show off the powers in the American cover as the, you know, as the front cover, which is cool.
Yeah.
The last one is the European cover, and this one just has a totally different look than all of them. This one kind of looks like vector art. And this one has the little... The character, the little ball character, and Headdy walking towards the screen.
Yeah.
So, as a graphic designer, out of these three in the 90s, which one would you think is the best one?
I actually think the European one's the best.
Wow.
And
why do you like this one?
I think so the American one, I think it looks a little too sloppy. There's too much going on. I think it's way too heavily airbrushed. Like, it looks like a cheap t-shirt you'd get at, like, the Boardwalk. It's just too much going on. I don't know. I mean, I get what you're saying with them, like, showing the different characters off, or the different, like, powers. Mm-hmm. But at first glance, you think those are enemies in the background, if anything.
100.
Like, it doesn't come off as that. And then the Japanese one, I don't know, for me, like I said, it reminds me of Bug, which isn't a very great connotation. I also think the CG renders are kind of not good.
I mean, actually, if you look at his website, which I do have over there, he still kind of does the same type of renders in 3D, you know? Trying to see,
right.
Like, but yeah, he's not the great. He has this, like, really different look to it, and we'll talk about the commercial they made in Japan for this, but it's basically claymation instead. But yeah, his 3D illustrations kind of look the same way he's been doing them this time around. Like, he's been doing the same type of CGI, kind of. It has his own, like, unique look. He only did a couple of covers for Sega. He's not a big popular guy. So, I have to agree with you. The European one is more simple. I have, you know, nostalgia for the American cover. I think they did it right, but I agree with you in the end. The cover is not that great just because it like you said, it looks like enemies. If you didn't play the game, you wouldn't know that those are, and I think they're supposed to be heady.
Exactly, and I think the European cover is the strongest too because it's very crisp and clean, like the art style. It's still airbrushed, but it's much cleaner. I like that he's kind of like walking towards the player. It's a little more engaging. You can see his head flying off, so there's something there. You're like, oh, that's interesting. And to be honest, as much as I don't like his character design, I think it's the most appealing here out of the three of them. Like, if you were to line them up and say, which design should we go with for the final game, you know, without knowing these are just cover art. They're so different when you look at them.
There's also the thing with the thong on the back. There's this level where there's this guy showing off his butt in the background. Like, instead of women opening up the window, it's supposed to be a guy and it's like, I guess, like a sumo wrestler. So that's funny that they put that in the cover of the European one.
That's cute.
But we also have this U.S. prototype box art. Have you seen this before? It's the worst cover.
I saw it earlier today. Yeah, it's not that great. It reminds me of a Game Gear game.
Oh, for sure. It looks like something, I don't know, it just looks like obviously it's not supposed to be final. I mean, this is probably something they showed this is what the game is going to be like to retailers, kind of. That's what it reminds me of.
Honestly, it's probably from the same guy who did the American cover art.
Oh, yeah, for sure. They even have the little castle in the back, which is the main part of the game. But yeah, they definitely changed this box art for America. Let's talk about the story. This is actually where we start talking about the lack of story in the American version, which is something that a lot of... Okay, so basically when the game came out in the West, they removed all in-game dialogue instead of just like, translating it. They're just like, just cut it all out. There is a story in the booklet, which you want to read it for the people at home. It's basically the same story in the Japanese one, so...
All right, here we go. English manual. On stage rampage. The curtain is raised and the Treasure Theater show begins. The star of the show is Dynamite Headdy, the guy with the coolest head on stage. But danger lurks backstage. Trouble brewin', the henchman of Dark Demon. stirs up trouble as he tries to do away with Headdy, but trouble brewin' is small stuffing compared to Dark Demon, who strives to rule the world by converting the inhabitants into his evil minions. Most devastating are the Keymasters, who serve as Dark Demon's elite guard. Okay.
So
that's rough.
So instead of Eggman, it's some guy named Dark Demon. Trouble Bruin is the cat that is basically like, he's really the Eggman character of this thing because he comes back over and over with like new ways of trying to beat you. But most of the game is that you're a puppet in this show and you're like sentient and you're trying to like. At first, I thought you were trying to stop the show, like, oh, you're trying to escape the stage show that these people put you in. A lot of it kind of reminds me of like Sonic, you know, that whole Sonic theory that Sonic's been playing this game with Eggman and Eggman's already won and he's just putting Sonic through experiments and that the world of Sonic is fake. That's why there's like these checkerboards. That's kind of what I thought this story was supposed to be. And they definitely just play up the whole like, no, it's just a silly collect the keys, kill the bad guy that's called what? Dark Demon?
Right. And I mean, you look back at all of these games and you pick out the ones that work and the ones that I guess didn't work because you forgot completely about them. And this is very forgettable. Yeah. Like, there's a very clear method to making a memorable video game plot, and this is not how you do it, because this throws way too many things at the wall. It's like, oh, okay, Trouble Bruin, but he works for Dark Demon. But then Dark Demon has other guys working for him, but then there's Keymasters. It's not good. I'm sorry. Like, I feel like...
They should have just said that he's escaping the stage show and he'll unlock the mysteries. And also, this is something we talked about before, but in other games like Golden Axe or whatever, we talked about how there's this illusion that everything's a stage show and this is not real and it doesn't take itself seriously. And this game is sort of that in the beginning right away. What do you think about that kind of aspect of it? That he's like a puppet that's alive.
Well, yeah, I mean, we talked about Altered Beast. Altered Beast was a movie, right? Mm-hmm. In one version, and I like that. I think this probably would have worked better if it was like he was a puppet and the whole game was a show. There's a recent game, well, not too recent, but for the Kinect, called Gunstringer, which I thought was fantastic, and it was like this, where it was very clearly a show being put on and being presented to you. But because of that, it was a little more fun, because you're like, oh, I'm controlling the puppet of the game. And I think that would have been a really cool sort of way to present this game, where you're controlling Dynamite Headdy. You're not Dynamite Headdy, you're controlling him, which I think is a change from, if you remember from Master System days, like every single manual was like, you're Sonic, you're Joe Montana, you know, like it would put you in the shoes. Yeah, but it's not good.
I mean, some of these stories are so simple that like reading, like sometimes I would read some games like Virtual Fighter. We talked about the story and it's like, wait, was this really in the story or am I making this up? But let's talk about some of the regional differences, since that's a big deal with this game and it's probably something that a lot of fans still discuss and hate Sega of America over. But at the time, according to Treasure President, Sega of America asked Treasure to make the game harder because they said video game rentals were cutting into people buying games. They wanted this to be a longer game for kids to take longer to beat. And according to him, the US version of Dynamite Headdy is 50% harder than the original Japanese game. In the Japanese release, you would start with 2 continues. The Western, you had nothing. Collecting icons. When you beat up a bad guy... So when you get 10 icons, it would be 1 continue. They moved that up to 13, which kind of makes the game a lot harder. Also, there's more enemies on screen. There's a big article on the cutting room floor that kind of goes into every single little thing that they changed, including like one of the weirdest stuff was they literally changed the color of the cat from purple to brown, right? And not only that, though, if you look at the Japanese and the American international color changes, they just changed the color like literally from the sprite. So every single boss that had purple, that purple color got turned into brown. I think some of the green got turned into pink. Also, they changed they changed bosses. Like there was this little girl boss of a doll became a robot. A geisha became a robot too. I don't know why those changes happened. They also Treasure went so far into the American release. They also changed signs. So there was parts in the game where they were like allude to the name of the levels. They literally went into the art and they changed the name of the levels to what the American one was. So they actually took this seriously and they went in and changed art assets. Now people would have just left it there, right? Like just a little poster in the back that nobody reads while you're walking by. They went and changed it. That's insane to me.
That's nuts.
So did you know that the American version was a lot harder? And growing up, did you have trouble beating it? Because I don't know if it's even possible to beat. Like, I played a translated version of the game where the Japanese ROM got American translated, so it's easier. And even with save state, I was like, man, this game's hard. It's like...
Yeah, no. I mean, like I said, it was a weekend rental, and the fact that I never bought the game after renting it probably says a lot about the quality, you know? Like,
yeah.
Typically, I'd rent a game, and if I enjoyed it, I'd want to buy it. But in this case, I was like, this thing's way too hard. There's no way I'm going to play this if I... So I think that really backfired on Sega. I don't know why they do that, because it's like Sonic 1 is, in my opinion, a pretty easy game, but it's like a good music album where you'll replay it again and again. And I think they did not understand that about kids. I don't think they understood that kids actually like things that they can sit down and play from start to finish again and again and again and experience again and again. Like, it always seems like when we hear behind the scenes stories, it's Sega of America going, oh, make this longer, make it harder. Kids want to get more bang for their buck. But like, you look still online, people are talking about Sonic games. They're like, oh, Sonic Colors is the best Sonic game. It's a short game, but that's why I think people like it. They've all experienced it from beginning to end, and they're looking forward to the remaster where they can do it all over again without putting in like 40 hours or something crazy.
I agree, and you know what? They were crazy. Can you imagine like movie studios going like, oh, rentals are taking over. Let's make this movie super boring and longer so kids could buy the VHS? I don't know. My thing is like, you're not going to beat rentals. They should have just joined the rentals and like try to get a cut out of it.
Right. I mean, you bring up movies. Like the big thing is make the movie under 2 hours so we can show it as many times in theaters, and then release the extended director's cut on home video so people have to buy it and check it out. That's how it always works. It's so stupid.
With games,
you know?
I mean, they should have. I mean, that would have been interesting if they did this thing where you could rent a game and then there was like a deluxe version that you could only buy with more levels. That would have been weird, right?
That would have been really weird at the time. I mean, nowadays they get that where they're like, get the digital deluxe edition of the new Yakuza 7 and receive, additional content.
Let's talk about characters now. This game, even though when I read the interviews, they talked a lot about how they spent a lot of time with characters, I feel like there isn't that many characters. I don't think a game like this, a platformer, needs like 1 million characters. Like, we don't need 150 characters. But here we have, let's talk about the real Dynamite Headdy. So, in the Beat magazine in 1994, there was this doll that they called the real Dynamite Headdy. Can you see the picture? And it has his personal data. Can you tell people what Dynamite Headdy is about and his character design here? They show you like, they literally break down everything.
So he is just under 50 centimeters. He weighs 1 kilogram. He's a puppet, so he's very light. His family, there are several puppets who were born or made at the same time as him, but none of them could throw their heads, so they weren't sent to the scrap heap, and are still alive somewhere. He loves jelly beans, cool stuff, the yet unknown, and he hates natto. I don't know. Oh, is that like the bad guy? Evil things, evil people, and indecisiveness. He's the restless type, someone who has to act on an idea as soon as it comes into his head, but he also has a slightly selfish side and a short temper, and he sometimes says rash things which he can't take back. He's very emotional and wears his heart on his sleeve. Most of all, he hates bad guys. No matter how fearsome they may be, his sense of justice and courage always compels him to stand up to them, even when alone, and his motivation is a burning heart with a passion for justice and a hatred for the wicked.
So,
okay.
He sounds a lot like some guy named Sonic the Hedgehog. I don't know if you've ever heard of these video games. They're pretty popular. Some people play them. I'm assuming Dynamite Headdy is going to be a bigger mascot than Sonic one day. But, I mean, we'll see. Time will tell.
Right.
So, Dynamite Headdy obviously hits and performs actions with his head. He has no neck and sort of gives off a Ristar / Rayman vibe. I think the game actually looks a lot like Ristar, like colorful in the way that they use the color palette. And he has those arms that stretch, kind of. So, but this character actually predates both of these by a year. I guess the closest would be Decap Attack, even though that game was just a what do they call it? Resprite game of a different Japanese games. But like this game is definitely higher in terms of quality than Decap Attack. I mean, so according to Kamura, who made Dynamite Headdy, he talked about the head attack. He said, "I had been thinking I wanted the character to use some part of his body when he attacked, and throwing his head was something new and would make an impact on players. I made him a puppet because puppets are easy to deform and manipulate. Whereas a living creature that detaches head would be weird, I thought. Even though Decap Attack is like a zombie that does it. I mean, I guess they didn't get the memo on that one. What is your thoughts on this? Like, this isn't like the only people that thought of like using your hands and making them stretch. I was playing a few other games that never came out, and there was like this other game by EA, right, that never came out. And in this one, like, you're playing as a pink jelly thing, and one of his moves is that, I don't know if it's his boner, but his crotch area comes out and extends and it hits. And I'm like, okay, I can see why this never came out. Because, I mean...
Right.
But still, like, this idea of, like, stretching arms and hitting things far away instead of using guns was kind of popular. So the idea of them using the head kind of made sense.
Yeah.
I also want to say that this game got massive support in Spain or in Spanish, and they loved, and we'll talk about some soundtrack later, but they love using the word cabeza because or cabezón to do the thing for this, because it means kind of like you're thick-headed or whatever, like that phrase. And what do you think about I mean, outside of that, his personality is basically Sonic, right? Like the typical hero at the time. All right, just wanted to make sure. The other characters we have are these... I don't even know what these things are. I mean, what do you think they look like? Dots? So...
They look like emojis.
Pretty much. There's these round oranges. Kind of looks like that. There's three of them. They're called the support trio. And they're called Mokin, Fukin, and Yokin. Or Yakun. Sorry. And these are from a Japanese boy band at the time called the Cool Kid Trio. If you're watching our video, I got a picture.
I thought it was what I like to do on a Friday night, which is makin, yakin, and fucking.
Exactly. So these characters are basically, I would say they're in-game icons, really. Like, one of them is the guy that gives you your head abilities, so he holds the box basically, and then the other one will tell you the weak points of the characters. And I think the other one. And the other one just stands there, and you could grab onto him. You know those little, like, you know that function in Ristar where you grab a ledge or whatever, and there's that little, like, the little, I don't know what they call it, a little grab, a little handle. You know those handles? Instead of a handle, it's it's this little icon. And he's a character. That's what I'm saying. So he says these are characters, but it's like they're really just kind of like, it's like if instead of Sonic having a box where he gets his power-ups, he's got wisps. They're basically wisps from...
okay.
Yeah, that's an easier way of saying that. They're wisps. Wisps. This guy, I mean, not the last character, but the third character we're going to be talking about is the cat, the purple cat. Maruyama is what you call him in Japanese. He's kind of the main boss, or he's kind of like the Eggman in this game. Well, Dark Lord or Dark whatever his name is the boss. This guy's the one you look and fight the most. I think he has 6 different boss battles in this game, which is kind of impressive. Very Sonic the Hedgehog, and he's not even the only boss in the game. So there's so many bosses in these games that it's a treasure game. When you play treasure games, you're gonna play bosses. There's even a special boss fight that you could unlock by. I'll talk about that in a little bit, but. And the last one I think is the most controversial one. Her name is Heather or Flingy. And depending on what version you played, she kind of got ham-fisted into the game. Basically, every time you beat a level, you get a key, right, from the boss. Mm-hmm. She would come in, and then Headdy would be like, "Oh my God, it's a girl!" And then he would be all over her. And while he's gawking at her, she would take the key from him, and she's trying to collect all the keys. As you could tell, Headdy's the only one that could detach his head, so her head is connected to her body. And her hands don't have any attachments, if you notice that. She's not playable.
Yeah.
But it was kind of alluded that she might have more to do in the second game. If there was, I think they were planning a second game that never got made. But
yeah, looking at her, I really get Nights into Dreams vibes. She reminds me of like Knight's body proportions, where it's like big chest and then thin torso, and then like the collar with the head on top, and then the hands kind of remind me of the Jester enemy in that game, where his hands kind of like were separated from his body. Very Nights into Dreams with her. And I actually wish she was the main character. I think that's a lot better design there. It's just much more heroic with the broad chest. I mean, maybe their breasts here, but Nights into Dreams, they're not. It's just kind of like this shape that I think looks a lot more heroic than what we got with Dynamite Headdy. It just looks like a fat raindrop.
Oh, for sure. And like I told you, I have to agree with you. I think that the character designs are probably the weak point, because like this game has so much crazy shit that they put in here, and like tricks that they got out of like they use so much power of the Genesis in here that like I was trying to think of like, is there any Super Nintendo game that's better than this? And I'm like, I don't know, man. It's pretty hard. There's only a handful. Like I don't want to say any names, but like Chrono Trigger has a lot of good graphics, but platformer wise, I don't know. Maybe that Mario Yoshi's Island game. I mean, that one has some pretty cool effects that they got going on from that game. So, all right. So let's just move on to the stages in this game. We talked about the characters. Those 4 are basically the ones worth talking about. There's an actual, like, if you go online, you can see the casting call where they name every single character in the game. They named every character, even background characters. It's like 10 minutes long. I'm not going to go through all those, obviously, but let's talk about stages. In Dynamite Headdy, stages are called scenes. And you sort of, it's sort of like, I mean, like, there's a big roll call in this game. It's like this whole stage play. So you start off in the stage, and you slowly start unveiling how this whole world is created, how it's fake. You're in a fake world, right? Instead of talking about every single stage, there's 9 of them, and each one has sub-stages, which they call acts. I'm just going to talk about some of the stages that I liked, and maybe show them in the background a little bit. The first one, I guess this thing just restarted itself. The first one we're talking about is, which stage is this? Oh, Northtown. This is a Japanese name, Northtown, but basically the game is pretty standard. It's a very, I would say, Sonic Green Hill Zone vibes to it, but I really like the backgrounds in this level. Like, there's so much stuff going on in the backgrounds with the flips of the windows and stuff. You can see, like, the bodybuilders instead of girls. I really like that motif. I think they did a really good job. There's gears grinding. There's little pictures. There's, like, squares in this game. And in those squares, there's, like, faces of people. And those people are animated. Then there's these, like... You know how in Gunstar Heroes, they got the tech to do, like, multi-polygon characters? They use that here for just, like, random characters that just randomly show up. It's not even a boss fight. So this game has a lot going on for it. And this is the first level I played in this game where I'm like, whoa, That's incredible. Like, damn, this is quality. This is a AAA game. The next level, I just used the town on this one. I'm assuming, I didn't know why. Oh, the friends room? No, this is not it that I picked, but... Oh, the level, there's this level where you have to literally just go up. I usually hate these levels, but I thought they did a good job on it, and it really shows you that, you know, the platforming on this game, the little dots that you use. I don't even know if I picked this one, to be honest with you. This is the one I really wanted to show, though. There's a level on here where there's a crane, right? And the crane is spinning, and it does this, like, fake 3D effect. I don't know if you played this level. It's called, it's Rolling, it's called in America. It's Scene 5, Act 3. And I don't know, it's just the way they did the boss battles and the way it just platforms and turns around in a circle like that. It's just an incredible stage. Definitely worth playing. I'm trying to, Scene 6. I have to copy it. Alright.
Yeah, that's always a treasure staple, is to do these like 3D platforms or girders or things moving around.
There's so many stages in this game. There's a shoot 'em up stage too that I really like. I usually hate when developers do these like shoot 'em up stages because I feel like, oh, I had nothing to do, so we did it. But I like the way they handled it in this game because it does this really cool thing where it shows you like basically a fake 3D wall, and it slowly starts like I don't know. I just really like the sky and the way they did the background on this one. It's just really incredible. There's a lot of these stages where they use the idea and the motif of this being a stage really well. I definitely recommend everyone to try this game. I think the art design in this game is incredible, and I think that's the biggest and the best part of the game. Also, all these little gimmicks they used from the Sega Genesis, they do them well here. The last bit, I didn't really want to talk about this, but there's a bonus game on here that I really dislike, and this is something I have with Sega games. You know what I'm talking about? Sonic Adventure. Sonic the Hedgehog game. Do you know what I'm talking about?
What, the special stages?
Yeah. What do you think about them?
Some are good, some are forgettable. Honestly, I think the Blue Spheres one I don't like. I feel like there's people who absolutely love it and like are, make this its own game. For me, I'm like, oh, this again.
No, I have to agree. I think that's the worst part of the Sonic games. Like, if you had to choose anything, you know. And in this one, I'm trying to find the stage, but it's like nobody's giving it to me online. I'm gonna put basketball. But
well, I think I've said in the past what I don't like about special stages, at least in Sonic games, is that I think the best special stages are ones that utilize skills that you build up playing the game itself. Like, if I'm good at Sonic, and you throw a completely different game at me and expect that to be the way for me to earn Chaos Emeralds, it's like, forget it. Because, like, if I'm not good at this game, like, it's a game within a game that I'm supposed to also be a pro at so that I can complete the main game and get the good ending. It doesn't seem fair to me. I don't know. It's always been, like, one negative I've had with the series. Like, it goes game to game. Like, I think the half-pipe thing is really cool. But then the Sonic 1 special stage, I just never have been a fan of the rotating puzzle where you're just like flying around. But what's the special stage about this game, or the bonus game?
So, it's a basketball game. You have two things that shoot basketballs up, and you're supposed to hit the basketballs with your head, and you're supposed to make him in the basket with the star on it. You're supposed to get like 10 stars, and then it gradually increases. And then if you get everything you're supposed to get, you get a number. You get, I think, 4 or 5 numbers, and in the end of the game they ask you to unlock a safe, and these numbers are generated for each playthrough, so there's no way you can go online and get them. So obviously there's a basketball with a star, the one you're supposed to hit. There's one with a key on it. If you get those, you basically destroy your machine that makes balls. If you get it twice, the minigame is over. You have to try again. There's one that makes it go faster, and one that I think that slows it down, so it could be easier. But those are the only 4 things. It's very simple, but just very annoying. And sometimes there's no time limit. So you could be here sometimes stuck for like an hour. Just trying to like make these balls in these stupid baskets. I'll tell you what you get for doing this when we talk about the bosses, which we're talking about right now.
Let's do it.
The thing is, this thing doesn't want to like just copy my links. This game, like a bunch of treasure games, there's a lot of bosses in this game. I think some of the most popular, or at least bosses that I found interesting, was this one boss that basically you're on this platform, right? Let's say this platform's like a circle. It's really hard to explain, right? And this character has his hands on the platform, and he could spin the platform around. And he does this thing where he spins the platform around, and you're on the other side of the platform, so behind him. And you're like this like 8-bit remake version of Dynamite Headdy, and it's like they play with perspective a lot in this game. A lot, it's like fake 3D. I don't know if you could see the video that I posted here.
Yeah. I've seen games that do that. I mean, most recently Sonic Mania did that, where you go into the background and you're like a tiny Sonic, but you're just far away.
Pretty much, yeah. They probably, I mean,
that's always cool. Dick Tracy does something similar, but it's the enemies are in the background and you're shooting them from the foreground. Yeah, I love when they do that though. That's really cool.
Yeah, this is a really cool. That's a really cool boss fight. It does really good job with the perspective. It's super smooth. It really shows off the graphics that you could do on the Sega Genesis without the need for some special chip like the Super Nintendo used. This next boss fight, I just found him really creepy. It's basically this like Japanese. I'm assuming this is like a Japanese demon mask, but he's a bad guy and he starts chasing you down this like weird. I don't even know what to say. The stage is. There's like workers inside these squares. They're animated and they're like cheering you on. There's some that are sleeping, and you're just hitting and you're supposed to like get away from him. And there's so you hit these like switches that make him red, which means he goes faster. But you have to hit the switches because you have to get through the level. You can't let him get near you. So sometimes you have to flip the stage by hitting the switch, but if you flip it sometimes, he turns red and comes faster at you.
Oh, yeah.
So you're supposed to play around with that. And very interesting stage, very cool boss. Here's another one. This one got censored in America. Is this the one that got censored or the one that changed? I don't think they changed this one. But you fight a baby head, right? And this is just like a shoot 'em up level. You start fighting a baby head, and then as you slowly fight him, he like sheds his head, so it's like a toy with a wind up on the top, and then you fight him as a baby, and then he splits and he's a kid, and then he splits open, he's an old man, and then there's one more that he splits open to, and I'm not going to tell you what it is. I mean, you guys have to play it, but I thought it was cool and very creepy. Like I've always been creeped out by baby like dolls and stuff, so this kind of gives me those creepy vibes, and it's also shooting magma from his mouth, so that would make anyone scared, right?
Yeah, and the design of Dynamite Headdy with the rocket head reminds me of that character from Sonic Rush.
Oh yeah,
Adventure, I want to say, where it's that robot whose head looks like a missile. Like some of these heads are like a better character design than the main one. Like I don't want people listening to this go, "Oh my god, Dynamite Headdy's my favorite game." Barry's just dunking on it, but no, I love the game. It's a fantastic game. It's just I think the character designs don't match the level of gameplay. But that doesn't matter. It's a fun game at the end of the day.
So, like I said, when you play this basketball game, to get a secret ending, it's not called true ending like on Sonic, but you get this boss called Capitalistic Swine. And this guy in an office with a bunch of money, and I forgot what he tells you. I think it tells you right here. But you basically fight him. That scene was a huge success. Regrettably, we haven't prepared the next scenario. So it's like this whole thing is orchestrated by a guy that's making money off of it. The whole idea is that your whole fight was for nothing, basically, because you're just making money for some dude in an office.
That's funny.
I'm assuming this is what Treasure felt like when they made video games back in the day. So, yeah, that's the secret fight that you have to get and unlock. But it's I just thought it was a funny fight. What do you think about the guy, the president of Sega, that looks like a clown with an orange face?
Yeah, he does look like a clown. He looks like the Joker from the 1989 Batman. At least the suit does, where it's like purple and orange.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And there's
I
like
thought it was
these
a funny
Dick
little-
Tracy-looking guys.
Yeah, very, very funny. It's obviously a big mock on American because they're obviously not Japanese people, but yeah. So this game has a lot of cool bosses.
That's pretty
It's
fun.
kind of like a staple feature when it comes to Treasure to have good boss fights. I think that's probably what they're known for as their legacy. Let's talk about the soundtrack. This is actually something that I don't hear a lot of people talk about this game. So it's actually a very excellent soundtrack, and it's one of the best sounding Sega Genesis games of all time, in my opinion. I think it's actually one of the best sounding 16-bit games, period. The game had 5 composers, which is sort of strange because most projects for Treasure at this time had 1 composer. This officially credited 5 artists. The biggest ones that actually have paper trail was Natsu 2 or Katsuhiko Suzuki, who went by Natsu the Second. And there was another artist that went by Aki, who was Akihata, who composed Rocket Knight Adventures, also worked on this game, and she also did Light Crusader soundtrack in 1985. The last credited person that we actually know about is this guy named Hanzawa or Naru. I don't even know how to say his name, man. I'm not even gonna try.
Nario Hanzawa.
He went by Nun, and he worked on other Treasure titles like Guardian Heroes and Gunstar Superheroes, which we did an episode on. And the other 2 I couldn't find anything on, but their name was Asuko and Kujo, and I couldn't find any info on them. There was no pages for them. I don't know who they were. It's one of those mysteries, I guess. I will say most of the credit goes to Suzuki in this soundtrack. He seems to be the one that actually did most of the most of the work on here. He also worked as sound producer. While other video game soundtracks have gotten some sort of vinyl release, this one only got a physical release back in 1994. They had this like CD, and this CD is freaking rare. I don't know. Can you see the link right here on Discord?
I see it.
Yeah. This in Discogs, I could only find 3 copies of this game for sale, and one of them was on Discog, and apparently, according to them, it's $500, dude, for the cheapest copy. I couldn't find it on eBay either. So, if you want some Dynamite Headdy on CD, you're gonna be edging out those 500 buckaroos. So, if you go to Japan and you see this album, pick it up. It's worth it.
I will.
It's for everyone, not just for you, dude. But yeah,
I will.
The album, obviously, the Japanese cover is just the CGI art. They did another release with some mixes. This one had Howard Drosen from Comic Zone and Sonic Spinball. He did some remixes on this one. It was for a Spanish magazine called Super Juegos, and this one was called Dynamite Headdy Cabezon Mix, which means in Spanish it means kind of like I said, big-headed, thick-headed.
Right.
And this one had 3 tracks. They were just remixed. These are the only 2 soundtracks this game ever got released. The next thing I want to show you, though, is some of the voice samples. I think this is something that this game did better. At the time, when the Sega Genesis was out, there was a lot of this stereotype that the voices and voice samples on Sega Genesis were trash. This game actually uses a lot of voices, and they sound great. They sound clear. I don't know. I'll put some of them on. Can you hear it?
Yeah.
Target! But yeah. Nice! Yeah, that's Headdy. But yeah.
You've got a secret bonus point.
So...
Oh, that sounds nice.
Right? That's what I'm saying. It's like, they had really good voices. Like, the voice samples on this are a lot better. Like, I went back and was playing Streets of Rage 2, and it's like, the Grandpapa or whatever. It sounds like Grandpapa, man. It's not Grand Upper.
Right.
But they did a really good job. Treasure should, like, I don't know, they should get they should just get some sort of trophy for the way they use the Sega Genesis hardware. Like, even if you don't like the look of the game, maybe the gameplay isn't for you, it's too hard, you can appreciate that they put a lot of effort into the power behind it, right? Let's talk about the different versions of this game. Did you play any of the versions that weren't like the ones that the Sega Genesis version?
I don't know if I even own Dynamite Headdy for Game Gear. I might. I'll have to check.
There's an 8-bit version. Actually, this game is half the length of the Genesis version. So like let's say it takes you about an hour and a half to beat. This one probably takes you about 30 to 40 minutes. This was done by Minato Gaiken, which is It was co-developed by Treasure and Minato Gaiken, which did Sonic Labyrinth. Obviously, a great game. Great game. This version of the game does a pretty good job shrinking the Mega Drive game, considering it uses so much of the power of the Genesis. But instead of having 9 scenes, this has 6 scenes, and there's a lot less sub-levels in it and boss battles. There was also... Okay, so the original Genesis game has 18 power-ups for your head. This game only has 6. So a huge degrade. So no contest, really. If you're going to play any of them, play the Sega Genesis version. Also, this has the opposite of the American version, where the American version actually has a story, and the Japanese version does not have a story. So I guess Genesis owners got their revenge on this one. They also released, in Brazil only, a Master System version based on the Game Gear version. And I did some research, and according to a lot of people on the internet, they changed bosses too on the Master System version that was done by Tech Toys. It's not just a straight port from the Game Gear, which is kind of, something that they used to do in Brazil a lot. Have you ever played a Game Gear game that was based on a Sega Genesis game where you're like, I actually prefer the Game Gear game?
I've heard people say that about Castle of Illusion starring Mickey Mouse, and there are bits from it I do like more than the Genesis one. But yeah, I can't say for sure there's ever a Game Gear game that I prefer to the Genesis one. I could say I think Sonic Drift 2 is more enjoyable than Sonic R.
Oh, yeah.
But that's just personal taste. But yeah. I do own Dynamite Headdy for the Game Gear, and it's good. It's not great, but that's not the point. Game Gear games were really meant to be your on-the-go game, and that's why when I was a kid and I had the Sega Nomad, I was like, why do I need to buy Game Gear games anymore? The Genesis version of the game is my portable game. So
I have to agree. They should have just done like the Nomad. Like they should have just skipped the the Game Gear and like just released the Nomad, because like it would have been a lot easier for these studios not to have to release like multiple versions of their games, like one in 8-bit and one in 16-bit.
Absolutely. Oh my god. And if you think this was a heavy lift, like to make a Game Gear version of a Genesis game, like I've recently been on a little kick of like looking up licensed games I haven't gotten. And I got the Ghostbusters one, and I got the Indiana Jones one that were on Wii. And I learned that both those games were remade. In the case of Indiana Jones, they remade the game from the ground up from a different studio just for the PSP, which seems like a lot of work. And then the Wii version of Ghostbusters is a remade from the ground up from a different studio of the same game from an Xbox game. So it's like...
Oh boy.
It's so much work. And nowadays it's like when a game comes out, we're like, well, it's on Switch, PlayStation 4, 5, Xbox. Like, it's the same game everywhere. And that's... do you miss games that are like different on different platforms?
No.
Like,
I'm sorry.
No, you don't.
No,
okay, because for me, there's times I miss it because like I like how the mobile version or the portable version of Sonic games would be completely different, like Sonic Colors or Sonic Lost World on the DS and 3DS, like in that situation.
So, yeah, no, I get that. I think they got better in the DS. Like, sometimes I would play a DS game where I'm like, oh, this looks like a Sega Saturn game. This is pretty sick. But here it was always like, I don't want to be that negative, but I felt like when the 16-bit era happened, like 2D gaming really got got a lot better and smoother and more mainstream. Like sometimes I try to go back to play a Master System game or an NES game, and I'm like, oh my god, my ears, the screeching, the sound chip.
Right, yeah, and I think that's why, like, back in the day, the Genesis and the SNES were really, like, to a lot of people, like, 2D gaming perfected. That nothing was really felt like it was being held back. It felt like they could really do just about anything. And then when the Saturn came out, I feel like the Saturn, at least in Japan, they were like, no, look, this is pure 2D gaming excellence. Meanwhile, here in America, we were like, we've moved beyond that. Can you start giving us 3D consoles? And so in that regard, I completely understand the disconnect between the Saturn and American audiences, because we didn't want 2D games perfected. We wanted 3D games, you know, like it's interesting. But
let's talk about advertising. You know what? I thought this was going to be a section in this video where I'm like, well, no magazine ads. See you guys next week. But actually, there's a lot of magazine ads for this game. The first one we're going to be looking at is an American ad. This is a 2-page spread ad by Sega of America. This one was featured in Game Players magazine on October 1994. I like the way what they did with the I mean, it's just the artwork for the cover, but the fact that they put the head on the separate page, it's pretty smart, and he's hitting the games, so they're like, it's visually capturing you. You're looking at his head, and then it's the games, both of them, on the Game Gear and the Genesis. They use a lot of screenshots, which is cool. They have the little, like, you know, Sega of America type text where it's like, the ultimate head trip! Exclamation mark. So what is your opinion on this ad as a graphic designer?
I mean, as a graphic designer, it's a little wacky, but as someone who has done, like, like at least 70 shows where we've looked at video game magazine ads, this is one of the ones I think I like. Like, it checks off all the boxes. The logo's there, it tells you about the game. For a 2-page ad, pretty much 1/3 of it is devoted to screenshots. The rest is cover art. I mean, I've said my piece on his character design. I don't think it's great, so to have his head taking up that much space is... I don't know if I would do that, but it does sell the idea of him throwing his head a lot better than the cover art does, I think. All in all, 9.2 out of 10.
The next one we have is a UK ad. This one was from Mean Machines Sega magazine from 1995, April 1995. And it's a 1-page spread. It just says, pound your pad, dynamite blows your heady. Going down at a store near you. First of all, terrible font, terrible colors. No screenshots.
Terrible sexual innuendo.
Yeah, for sure. This is UK 100%, you know what I mean? At this time, they were doing the pervy ad, you know? It has the price, which is cool. What's their little heading thing? Oh, Sega. Keep pounding your pad was their phrase back then for Sega. That's terrible. But anyway, no screenshots. And just the cover for the Mega Drive, but no cover for the Game Gear version. As a marketing dude, I mean, what do you think about this? No?
I've never been a fan of the, like, super sexual Mega Drive ads because it just does not make sense. Like, these are not sexual games. I mean, if it was like Dead or Alive Extreme Beach Volleyball, yes, of course. It's a game that's about, like, looking at sexy women. Here, it's like a puppet boy throwing his head. So you do not need to be like, oh, they're blowing your heady, going down. Like, it's, I hate these. I'm just going to come out and say that. I see people sharing, I have a lot of memories of the Mega Drive game advertisements.
Did you, can you imagine Marvel doing this now, though, for kids' movies? It's like, Thor's gonna smash your ass tonight. And it's like, what the hell are you guys doing, dude? Why are you guys advertising this with sex in it? Like, why?
Like, I mean, again, I'm no prude, but it's just, it doesn't fit. You know, like if it was a James Bond video game, yes, make a sexual joke. They do that in the James Bond movies, but it's a puppet who throws his head.
And this doesn't really tell you anything about the game, really, if you think about it. Like, how are they selling you?
It tells you absolutely nothing. I will give it a 1 out of 10.
1 out of 10. That's pretty good. The next one is the Japanese ad for the game. This one actually came out on Beep magazine, which is the interview that they did with the creator of August 1994. This ad kind of just features the CGI renders that they did for it with a Japanese writing everywhere. And down here in the corner, they have the little pictures of the screenshots way in the bottom. They also have like this weird look for the Game Gear. It's like pink, and the Mega Drive is green.
Oh, yeah.
So they kind of color-coded it. What's your opinion on this ad? I mean, it's better than the European ad for sure, but they're really...
Yeah, no, it's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just the cover art. I think the screenshots could have been bigger. I'm kind of surprised to see Welcome to the Next Level in a Japanese ad. I thought that was an American thing.
Oh, yeah. That is weird.
That's kind of odd. I actually really love the tiny Game Gear in the corner and the tiny Mega Drive, too. Yeah, all in all, I'd give it a 4.72 out of 9.
Well, we never got commercials for this game in America. I wonder what it would have been like, you know? I'm assuming there was going to be a kid getting his head blowing up, you know? Or something like that where he's like,
right.
Oh my god, it's so extreme. In Japan, though, they got an ad, a claymation ad. So Sega spent some money on this. I don't know how expensive claymation is or anything, but I'm going to play the ad. It's 30 seconds. Welcome to the next level.
Yeah.
So look at music. And then the transforming of the heads.
That's pretty cool.
And then they show you the game with all the graphical power that they have, right? As you can see, the supporting trio is even in the trailer in this little commercial. The
They are.
Yeah. So they're supposed to be main characters, like I said. But what do you think about this? I thought it was a cute ad. I want to see an HD version of this because I know Sega has it somewhere. But I really, really like that they did a little claymation of it. I'm a big fan of claymation. So I thought this was sick and a little cute. What about you?
Yeah, I really like it. It's a shame we never got ads over here because with the Welcome to the Next Level, they could have easily dubbed this into English and made an American ad.
Which, I mean, it's going to get to the next bit of our talk, which is basically the legacy for this game. For a while, Sega was actually advertising that Dynamite Headdy was coming to the 32X. The idea was that it was supposed to be ported over as a support for the system. I kind of looked online a little bit, and the only thing I really found with any footage or like promoting was a Spanish VHS tape. I didn't play it on here because it has like a streamer talking over it, and he's like, dude, Dynamite Headdy, I don't know what the fuck that is, or whatever. But basically, it looked like it was just footage from the Genesis game, and I'm assuming if they did a port of this, it would have probably been the Sega Genesis game with maybe a couple of levels added onto it. I'm not sure.
Right.
As far as why it was canceled, I've heard it both ways. I've heard it that the game didn't sell enough to warrant a 32X port, or that the 32X didn't sell enough to warrant more games for it. I think it's a little bit of both, personally, because obviously the 32X did not sell, and obviously this game obviously did not sell. What do you think about these 32X games that got canceled early on? And do you think it was a right move to not port this game over? Like, to me, it's like, I think it would have devalued the 32X. It was supposed to be an upgrade to the Genesis, and now you're releasing ports for Genesis games on the 32X that look exactly the same?
Right, yeah. From my experience, the games that did do this didn't really fare that well. Like, Pitfall, I believe, had a 32X port, but it's very hard to tell, like, what is enhanced about it. Whereas with the FMV games, obviously the video quality is better. It fills more of the screen, so that makes sense. I also feel like 32X kind of has its equivalent of Dynamite Headdy, which was Tempo, which takes more advantage of like the color palette and the sound. It's a beautiful looking game and sounding game. Gameplay wise, not all that great, but if you remember our Star Wars Sega Talk episode, it was Star Wars Arcade that really helped sell the system alongside Virtua Fighter. So it's clear that 3D games were the focus of the 32X. So I don't think this game would have helped the 32X, and I don't think a 32X port probably would have helped the Genesis release.
Yeah, it really felt that Sega thought this game was going to be like a breakout game. When I was watching the Spanish VHS tape for the upcoming 32X games, and this game was part of it, the way that they sold it on there, like Sega of Spain or whatever it was, because they talked hablamos español así with a thief. He was basically always making jokes to Albert Einstein, saying the greatest minds of this century are Albert Einstein and Dynamite Headdy, and then I don't know, trying to make him like a smartass. Basically, was their whole idea that working the whole cabezon thing that means thick-headed to Dynamite Headdy. They really play that up because when you see Spanish Mexican ads or whatever, same thing. They play up the whole cabezon. Like we saw the cabezon mix. They really seem to like it. So I did mention that he was influenced by Looney Tunes. My thing is this character looks nothing like any Looney Tunes character I've ever seen. Have you? I was trying to think if there was a Looney Tunes character look.
Nothing comes to mind. I mean, it looks like, I don't know, like a cutesy Japanese character. I don't really get much Looney Tunes from it at all, which is kind of ironic because this is the developer that did all the Tiny Toon Adventures games, and they couldn't really replicate that. Oh well.
Yeah, especially, I agree with you there. Even though the game failed commercially, the game was a massive critical acclaim, which is not surprising. Anything Treasure touches seems to get kind of, at this moment in this time period, critical acclaim. They used to say that it was bringing new life to platformers, and that it's kind of finishing off the job that Sonic the Hedgehog started, saying that the visuals were an overload for the eye, which I actually really agree with. I think the visuals are the strongest point of this game. In 2008, Treasure President came out and to say that the company was actually happy with the performances of their WiiWare titles, including Gunstar Heroes and Sin and Punishment. But he was actually very, very sad that nobody was buying Dynamite Headdy on the Wii U store. I don't think things have changed that much since 2008. I think the popularity of Dynamite Headdy is probably like Light Crusader in terms. I think this game is more popular than like Light Crusader or like other games that Treasure have done. But it's not up there with like Ikagura, Radiant Silvergun, Gunstar Heroes.
Right.
So it's in this weird middling part, even though I think the game is great. So to end this talk, let's talk about how you could play this game. So let's say you can't afford the Sega Genesis cartridge, which is not that much actually. I think it's complete for $60. So you could play it on the Sega Ages 2500 series, the Gunstar Hero Treasure Box. You could play it on Wii via the Virtual Console that was released in 2007. You could use the Sonic Ultimate Genesis Collection for 360 and PS3 that came out in 2009. In 2012, it was released on Steam. Sega Genesis Classics on the Switch, Windows, Linux, everything under the sun in 2018 includes this game. Which, if you're cheap, just get the Sega Genesis Classics versions and just play all 50 games on there. I'm just saying, that's probably the best bang for your buck to play this game. $30 and you get 50 games. Not bad.
It's on the Genesis Mini.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
I
alongside
didn't know
Gunstar Heroes.
And
yeah.
Sega Forever added it in 2018 for free for the mobile devices. Outside of that, though, I would say to play the actual ROM that was translated by fans from the Japanese version, because regardless of what American version you play, officially Sega has never went back and made the game easier, never went back and actually added the cutscenes to it. So you'll never be getting the full story of the game. So in my opinion, go online and check out the fan-translated ROM. Try that game. I think it's the best way to play the game. I played them both ways, and that was my favorite way of playing it. And I think a lot of people that are hardcore fans agree that's the way to play it. That's it for Dynamite Headdy. Do you want to say anything before we close up?
I mean, fun game, memorable game. It's a shame it never really took off as a franchise, like maybe Gunstar Heroes kind of did with the second follow-up. I would have loved to have seen Dynamite Headdy actually appear on the Game Boy Advance with a sequel. I think it's well deserving of that. But I am happy that it's, appearing in so many
re-releases,
compilations and things. Like I just booted up the Sega Forever release actually has the Japanese version on it, which is great.
Yeah.
So you can boot up into that, and it looks good. It plays pretty well. I mean, we're fans of Sega Forever. They're fans of us. So if you're looking for a quick and easy way to get it right now, like as you're listening to this, it's probably on your phone. Otherwise, I'd say do the Genesis Mini, or like you mentioned, the Genesis Classics Collection. You're going to get a lot of bang for your buck. So should I read the memories?
I actually would also recommend people picking the game up physically on Genesis if you ever wanted, because I feel like this is one of those games that's going to be even rarer, maybe like a 200 plus level after a few more years. Like, I just think all treasure games are going to end up being one of those games that are like super highly valued in the future. But
that's a great point.
So you want to read the Patreon comment, and I'll read some of the Twitter comments we got?
Absolutely. So if you support us on Patreon at any level, you can have your memories read at the end of the show, and we always throw out like a week before a post saying, share your memories of Treasures Dynamite Headdy. So we have a longtime listener and memory maker, lever, Daniel Andres, and he says, oh my goodness, this crazy and unique game. I haven't played much of it, like at all, but it most definitely has a major memorable first impression. The first time that I even knew that this game had existed was when I discovered myself on the Sonic's Ultimate Genesis Collection for the 360. I was like, what the hell is this game? Well, I was playing it, but also just loving everything I was doing and seeing at the same time. I kind of want to get an actual Genesis cart of the game someday, and I still mean to play more of it. However, as crazy and wacky as it is, I remember it being kind of difficult. I've only played the first stage, but man, what a stage to remember. And you want to read some of them Twitter memories? We rarely do Twitter, but we're doing it on this show.
I would also say that, like, the game just gets crazier as the game goes on, and they use a lot more graphical power later on, where it's like they don't just like give you the best in the beginning, so it's definitely worth playing through. Use save states. I hate continue systems in retro games. I think it's definitely worth using save states just to play the game faster and enjoy it. I think there's some people that just give up on these games and don't want to use save state because they feel like it's cheating. But
right.
The damn Mukai says all of it. When I said what's your memories with the game, all of it. But dear God, the song "Hustle Mariyama" doesn't simply cook, as they say, but fucking flambés tableside. Also, getting all the bonus points even with the help of save states. Hell of an accomplishment. Hats off to anyone who's done that without assistance. Yes, hats off to me. Dude, I'm telling you, man, you can spend an hour trying to do those basketball stages, and it's like, I didn't like it. I was like, it kind of destroys the pacing of the game when you're sitting there for an hour trying to make basketballs. It's absolute. Oh, we got Tybes with a bunch of S's. It's absolutely criminal how the secret bonus point concept still seems to be totally unique to this game. I have never seen it copied in another game since. We got Firewood's Dev, who says, never getting past the Stair Wars, the green room being creepy as fuck, and the brilliant soundtrack. Terminator 2 being my personal favorites. Vatican Keist says it had super FX, even though he said FX twice, FX and then FX after it, without needing a chip. Crystal clear samples and was just damn tech art piece on the Mega Drive. Dynamite Headdy 1 says it's perfect. And Star Wave Impulse says such an underrated classic. Sad face.
Wow.
And that's all for this episode of Dynamite Headdy. What do you got for us next time on Sega Talk, or is that a secret?
I mean, well, we have a patron who wants us to cover something, but they have not messaged yet with their specific requests. So if we don't hear from them by maybe the end of the week, I'll pull something out of my hat. I've got a few things in my back pocket, actually. So it'll be a surprise.
Nice.
It'll be a surprise.
Catch you guys next time on Sega Talk. If you want to support us, or you guys have a request of a game you guys want to see us cover, or even a console or person, there's a tier in Patreon where you can support us for that. And you know what? You keep us fed and fat, so it's the least we could do. I don't even know where I was going with that. See you guys next time on Sega Talk. Bye.
We have to
Yeah.
we have to head
Yes.
out. Get it?